Baseball's greatest hitters used to age like fine wine. Pete Rose, Barry Bonds.
You have to go 3 keys. Where are they?
Keeping your hands up is very important.
They weren't just good, they stayed great deep into their careers. But these days, even stars like Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, and Mookie Betts are peaking earlier and fading faster. So what happened? Well, the reasons are deeper than you think. Let's break it down. The physical decline. To understand why old hitters are disappearing from baseball like morning dew under a scorching sun, we must first examine the brutal reality of aging in professional sports. Unlike fine wine or vintage whiskey, baseball players don't improve with age. Instead, they face an inevitable biological countdown that begins ticking louder with each passing season. The human body, in all its remarkable complexity, follows predictable patterns when it comes to athletic performance. Research consistently shows that hitters peak in their late 20s, typically around ages 27 to 30, and begin a gradual decline thereafter, particularly in their 30s. This decline isn't some cruel joke played by nature. It's rooted in measurable scientific changes that occur within the athlete's body as the calendar pages turn. Consider the fundamental tools of hitting: bat speed and reaction time. These aren't just important, they're absolutely critical for success against modern pitching. A 538 analysis notes that reaction time peaks at age 24, which means that by the time most players reach their supposed prime years, they're already fighting an uphill battle against their own biology. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating and tragic. While these aging curves have remained relatively constant throughout baseball history, the game itself has evolved into something far more physically demanding than what previous generations of players faced. The average four-seam fastball has increased by about 2 mph over the last decade, and this seemingly small change creates a seismic shift in the challenge facing aging hitters. To put this in perspective, imagine trying to hit a baseball traveling at 95 miles per hour. The ball covers the 60 feet, 6 inches from the pitcher's mound to home plate in approximately 0.4 seconds. In that impossibly brief window, a hitter must recognize the pitch type, calculate its trajectory, decide whether to swing, and execute a perfectly timed movement that requires coordination between multiple muscle groups. Now imagine doing this while your reaction time has slowed, your muscle fibers have lost some of their explosive power, and your eyesight, yes, even your eyesight, has begun to deteriorate with age. The physical decline manifests in ways that would make even the most casual observer wince. Exit velocity, a key indicator of hitting power, begins to decline as early as age 23 to 24, and by the time hitters reach their mid-30s, this decline becomes more pronounced. This means that even when an aging hitter makes solid contact, the ball doesn't jump off the bat with the same authority it once did. What used to be a home run becomes a warning track fly ball. What used to be a line drive in the gap becomes a routine out. The cognitive aspects of aging are equally devastating. Cognitive abilities peak at age 24, and perceptual speed, the ability to quickly recognize and react to pitches, declines continuously after age 25. This isn't just about being a split second slower, it's about the fundamental ability to process information in real time against pitchers who are throwing harder and with more deception than ever before. The hormonal changes that come with aging add another layer of complexity to this biological puzzle. By age 35, hitters experience reduced levels of testosterone and growth hormone, making it harder to maintain muscle mass. Additionally, muscles lose elasticity and tendons and ligaments become stiffer, which can alter swing mechanics and increase the risk of injury. It's as if the very machinery that makes a hitter successful begins to rust and wear down, no matter how well maintained it might be. These aren't abstract concepts or theoretical discussions. They're playing out in real time on baseball diamonds across the country. By age 38, hitters may rely heavily on home runs while setting career highs in strikeouts and lows in other metrics. The plate discipline that once served them well begins to abandon them precisely when they need it most. But here's the truly heartbreaking part of this story. Unlike pitchers, who can undergo Tommy John surgery or adjust their mechanics to extend their careers, hitters have no equivalent fountain of youth. There's no surgical procedure that can restore bat speed. There's no mechanical adjustment that can turn back the clock on reaction time. There's no training regimen that can permanently reverse the effects of aging on muscle fiber composition. The contrast with pitchers is particularly stark and revealing. Pitchers can reinvent themselves, add new pitches, change their approach, or even benefit from surgical interventions that can actually improve their performance. But for hitters, the tools of their trade, hand-eye coordination, bat speed, and reaction time, are finite resources that can only be preserved, never truly restored once they begin to decline. This reality becomes even more brutal when we consider the modern game's demands. Today's hitters don't just face fastballs that are 2 to 3 mph faster than a decade ago. They face an entirely different different universe of pitching sophistication. Every bullpen now has 2 to 3 pitchers hitting triple digits, and the combination of velocity and movement has created a perfect storm that particularly affects aging hitters who lack the physical tools to adapt. The aging curve research tells a story that's both predictable and tragic. Data shows that hard hit rates peak around age 30 and decline sharply afterward, reflecting reduced bat speed and power. What makes this even more devastating is that older hitters can see what's happening to them. They know their skills are eroding, but they're powerless to stop it. The statistical evidence paints a clear picture of this decline. Research from aging curves indicates that hitters' production, measured by WRC+, drops sharply in their late 30s. These aren't minor fluctuations or statistical noise. These are significant, measurable declines that affect every aspect of offensive performance. And so, the question isn't whether aging affects hitters, it's whether the modern game has evolved to a point where the natural aging process has become an insurmountable obstacle. And as we'll see in the later parts of this video, the challenges facing aging hitters extend far beyond the biology of growing older. They're fighting a war on multiple fronts, and time, it seems, is winning. The evolution of the game. In the sterile, high-tech environment of a modern pitching lab, a young hurler stands before an array of cameras, sensors, and computer screens that would have seemed like science fiction to players from just 2 decades ago. TrackMan and Rapsodo devices track every rotation of the baseball, every subtle movement of his arm, every minute detail of his delivery. Within minutes, he receives data that tells him not just how fast he threw, but the exact spin rate, the precise axis of rotation, and the optimal grip pressure needed to make his slider devastating against left-handed hitters. Meanwhile, in batting cages across the country, aging veterans take their swings against pitching machines, relying on the same fundamental approach they've used for decades, largely unaware that the game has evolved into something they can barely recognize. This stark contrast between the technological revolution in pitching and the relative stagnation in hitting development represents perhaps the most significant factor in the extinction of older hitters. The evolution of pitching in modern baseball reads like a technological thriller, with each advancement creating new challenges for hitters who grew up in a simpler era. Modern pitchers have access to a broader arsenal of pitches, with the average MLB starter throwing 4.23 different pitches at least 5% of the time. This isn't just about having more options, it's about creating a level of unpredictability that would have been impossible in previous generations. The emergence of new pitch types has been particularly devastating for traditional hitters. Sweepers, for example, are characterized by significant horizontal break, 15+ inches, at around 82 mm/h, making them particularly effective against same-side batters. These pitches didn't exist in any meaningful way when many of today's aging veterans were learning to hit in the minor leagues. Cutters and changeups are often used to target opposite-handed hitters, inducing weak contact or swing-and-miss outcomes. But it's not just about new pitch types, it's about how these pitches are being optimized through technology. Pitchers like Christian Scott have benefited from advanced training tools like Rapsodo, which help develop pitches with higher velocity and more movement, resulting in a .053 batting average against his breaking pitches. When you consider that traditional hitters learned their craft against fundamentally different pitching, the challenge becomes almost insurmountable. The velocity revolution has been equally dramatic and unforgiving. Pitchers are throwing faster than ever, with average fastball velocities reaching new highs. This increased speed doesn't just make hitting harder, it fundamentally changes the entire equation of the at-bat. When you reduce the time a hitter has to recognize and react to a pitch, you're essentially asking them to make decisions faster than their aging nervous system can process information. The sophistication of modern pitch design extends far beyond simple velocity. Modern pitchers are able to generate higher spin rates, which create more movement on pitches, with breaking balls now having sharper vertical and horizontal break, making them harder to track. The result is that the use of breaking balls has increased from 28.5% to 31.0% over the past 5 years, and batters are hitting just .21 with a .359 slugging percentage against spin-heavy pitches. Perhaps most significantly, the analytical revolution has given pitchers and their coaches unprecedented insight into hitter weaknesses. Teams now use extensive data to analyze hitters' weaknesses and tailor pitching strategies accordingly. This targeted approach allows pitchers to exploit specific vulnerabilities, turning what were once minor weaknesses into glaring holes in a hitter's approach. The strategic evolution of bullpen usage has created another layer of difficulty for aging hitters. The decline of complete games from 315 in 1971 to just 35 in 2023 reflects a shift toward bullpen usage and specialization. This means that hitters must now face a parade of fresh arms, each with their own unique repertoire, rather than having the opportunity to see a starter for multiple at-bats and make adjustments. The data supporting this pitching revolution's impact on offense is both stark and undeniable. League-wide batting averages dropped from 247 in 2023 to 239 in 2024, with slugging percentages decreasing from 407 to 386. These aren't minor fluctuations. They represent a fundamental shift in the balance between pitching and hitting. Even more telling is the fact that runs are down 6% and home runs are down 16%, reflecting a broader trend of reduced scoring. The batting average on balls in play is the lowest in 32 years, with fewer hits per game than any season since 1969. The struggles aren't limited to aging veterans, they're affecting players across all age groups, which makes the situation even more dire for older hitters. Both rookies like Jackson Holliday .059 and Victor Scott II .085, as well as established stars like Randy Arozarena .158 and Alex Bregman .201, are struggling, with 39 qualified hitters under 215. If young, physically gifted players are struggling to adapt, imagine the challenge facing hitters whose reflexes and bat speed have already begun to decline. The philosophical approach to pitching has also undergone a radical transformation. In the 1960s and 1970s, pitchers like Fergie Jenkins would hold back their best stuff early, giving hitters more opportunities to see quality pitches. Today, pitchers go all out from the first pitch, with no holding back, typically pitching around 100 pitches per game. This change in approach has eliminated one of the advantages that experienced hitters traditionally enjoyed: the ability to see a pitcher multiple times and make adjustments. Lineups in the past had automatic outs, such as pitchers batting 148, 189, 187 in 1971, and weak-hitting middle infielders like Dal Maxfield 222, 299, 2265. Today, lineups are filled with better athletes and hitters, leaving no easy outs and no breathers for pitchers, which ironically makes them more focused and effective against every hitter they face. The technological gap between pitching and hitting development has created an almost unfair advantage for pitchers. While pitchers have access to sophisticated tools like TrackMan and Rapsodo that provide immediate feedback on every aspect of their performance, hitters lack comprehensive tools to analyze their performance in real time, with the absence of widespread bat tracking data representing a significant gap. This data imbalance is absolutely contributing to the rise in strikeouts and disappearing offense, particularly affecting traditional hitters who cannot quantify their timing or swing decisions effectively. Without tools to analyze swing mechanics in the same detail that pitchers can analyze their deliveries, hitters are fighting a technologically inferior battle. The industry recognition of this problem is evident in comments from managers and hitting coaches. Managers like Stephen Vogt and AJ Hinch have noted that every year is the hardest time it's ever been to hit due to the rapid evolution of pitch design and technology. AJ Hinch specifically noted, "You are no longer able to cover an entire arsenal," indicating the overwhelming nature of the challenge facing modern hitters. The comparative analysis between past and present reveals the magnitude of this evolutionary shift. Past hitters, even legends like Babe Ruth, would likely struggle against today's advanced pitches like sliders, cutters, and sweepers, which were not as prevalent or refined in earlier eras. Conversely, modern pitchers would find it easier to dominate past lineups due to the presence of weaker hitters and less sophisticated hitting approaches. This technological and strategic evolution has created a perfect storm for aging hitters. They're not just fighting the natural decline of their physical abilities. They're trying to adapt to a game that has fundamentally changed while they've been playing it. It's like trying to compete in Formula One with a car from the 1980s, except the track keeps changing and getting more challenging with each lap. The business of baseball. The economics of modern baseball have created a landscape where youth isn't just valued, it's prioritized to a degree that would have been unthinkable in previous generations. This isn't sentiment or nostalgia driving these decisions, it's pure, calculated business sense that makes the extinction of older hitters not just likely, but inevitable. The numbers tell a story that's both stark and unforgiving. The economic disparity between large and small market teams has reached unprecedented levels, with the highest payroll, Dodgers at $353,015, 360, being more than 4 times larger than the lowest, A's at $83,912,541. The difference between the top third average, $281,340,295, and bottom third average, $121,343,069, is $159,997,227, nearly the equivalent of the Royals' 20th highest payroll. This economic chasm creates a two-tiered system that fundamentally affects how teams approach aging hitters. Large market teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets can afford to take chances on veteran players, absorbing the financial financial risk if those players decline rapidly. But for the majority of teams operating with significantly smaller budgets, every dollar spent on an aging hitter is a dollar that can't be invested in younger, potentially more productive talent. The absence of a salary cap in baseball amplifies this effect exponentially. MLB's lack of a salary cap allows teams to offer long-term, high-value contracts, creating dynasties through smart scouting and absorbing big contracts for prospects. While this benefits the game's biggest stars, it creates a system where large market teams can outbid smaller teams for top free agents, often securing traditional hitters or other high-impact players. The ripple effects of this economic structure are felt most acutely by aging hitters who command significant salaries but whose performance may be declining. Smaller market teams, unable to compete in free agency, must focus on player development and scouting, often targeting players who can succeed in the modern game without requiring massive financial investment. But the economic pressures extend far beyond simple payroll considerations. The rise of analytics has fundamentally changed how teams evaluate players, and this shift has been particularly devastating for traditional hitters who excel in areas that don't show up prominently in modern statistical analysis. Over the past 2 decades, MLB teams have increasingly relied on data analytics, inspired by Moneyball and Billy Beane's sabermetrics. This analytical revolution was driven by economic necessity as much as competitive advantage. Smaller market teams use data to compete without high spending, identifying market inefficiencies and players who didn't shine in traditional stats but contributed in subtle, quantifiable ways. The problem for aging hitters is that many of their traditional strengths, veteran leadership, clutch hitting, situational awareness, are either difficult to quantify or have been devalued by modern analytical methods. Meanwhile, the metrics that analytics prize most, exit velocity, launch angle, barrel rate, are precisely the areas where aging hitters show the most decline. Teams use data for in-game decisions, such as defensive shifts and bullpen management, which can disadvantage traditional hitters who rely on pulling the ball or making consistent contact. The widespread adoption of defensive shifts, before they were restricted in 2023, exemplified this trend. Shifts were used in 38% of all plate appearances by 2022, including 62% against left-handed hitters, turning traditional hitting approaches into statistical liabilities. The strategic shifts in team-building philosophy have been equally damaging to aging hitters' prospects. Analytics have also influenced player development, with a focus on refining skills like launch angle to increase home runs, potentially favoring hitters who can adapt over traditional power hitters. This emphasis on adaptability inherently favors younger players who are more malleable and haven't yet developed deeply ingrained habits that might conflict with optimal approaches. The contract structures in modern baseball further illustrate this bias toward youth. Younger players receive longer, more lucrative contracts, e.g. Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, while older players like Nelson Cruz get shorter deals, reflecting perceived decline. This trend isn't accidental. It reflects a fundamental shift in how teams view the risk-reward calculation of player investment. The transformation of the designated hitter role provides a perfect case study in how economics and strategy have combined to limit opportunities for aging hitters. In 2025, the oldest hitters like Justin Turner and Yuli Gurriel at 40 are primarily designated hitters, their fielding days behind them. But even these DH opportunities are becoming scarce as teams increasingly prefer to use the position for rest days for younger players or to give at-bats to prospects. The current performance of these veteran designated hitters illustrates why teams are moving away from older players. Yuli Gurriel is struggling this season with a 111 batting average in only 16 games for the San Diego Padres, while Justin Turner is also underperforming compared to his career norms with a 208 average and only 2 home runs in 55 games. These struggles aren't just individual failures, they're representative of the broader challenges facing aging hitters in the modern game. The economic impact of this shift extends beyond individual players to affect the entire ecosystem of professional baseball. Teams often prefer younger, cheaper players under team control, impacting roster spots for older hitters. This preference isn't just about current performance, it's about long-term financial planning and maximizing value from player development investments. The revenue sharing and luxury tax systems, while designed to promote competitive balance, have had unintended consequences for aging hitters. In 2021, $30 million was paid in luxury tax, redistributed to lower payroll teams. However, while these mechanisms provide some financial relief, they do not fully close the gap between large and small markets, and smaller teams still face challenges in retaining or acquiring high-salary players, including traditional hitters. The strategic response to these economic pressures has been predictable and devastating for older players. Smaller teams may use their limited resources to develop hitters who can thrive against modern pitching strategies, such as those with high on-base percentages or defensive skills, rather than investing in traditional power hitters. hitters. The technological divide in player development resources has created another economic barrier for aging hitters. MLB organizations have been criticized for not providing the player development tools that hitters need, with Jason Sherwin from DeCurvo noting that major league organizations are not providing the player development tools that the players want or need, leading to reliance on external training centers like Driveline Baseball and Baseball Rebellion. These external resources represent significant additional costs that not all players can afford. The reliance on facilities like Driveline Baseball, Elite Baseball, 108 Performance, and Baseball Rebellion, which offer advanced hitting technologies such as Burtec force plates, Rapsodo trackers, K-Motion vests, and Blast Motion bat sensors, creates a two-tiered system where players with resources can access cutting-edge development tools while others cannot. The equipment optimization revolution represents another economic challenge for aging hitters. Many hitters are not using optimally fitted equipment, with 70% of players tested wearing improper shoe sizes, which can inhibit ground reaction force and overall hitting power. The lack of bat, shoe, and glove fitting could otherwise increase exit velocity and launch angle, but these optimizations require investments that many aging players facing uncertain career prospects may be reluctant to make. The philosophical shift in how teams approach roster construction has been perhaps the most fundamental change affecting older hitters. Teams increasingly prioritize younger players who can adapt to the modern game's demands, such as advanced pitching strategies and defensive shifts. Older hitters, who may not have the same durability or adaptability, are less likely to be retained or given opportunities. Teams value players who can stay healthy and perform consistently over a long season, and traditional hitters, who may face more physical challenges as they age, are at a disadvantage compared to younger, more durable players. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle where teams invest less in aging hitters, leading to fewer opportunities, which in turn makes it harder for these players to prove their continued value. The future outlook for aging hitters in this economic environment is sobering. The industry is exploring ways to develop hitters who can better counter advanced pitching and economic challenges, with interest in more contact-focused hitters who can handle a variety of pitches without needing to rely on power. However, the gap between large and small market teams remains significant, influencing how teams build rosters and value players. The extinction of older hitters isn't happening because they lack talent or determination. It's happening because the economic realities of modern baseball have made their continued employment financially untenable for most organizations. In a sport where every decision is increasingly driven by data, analytics, and economic efficiency, the traditional values of experience, leadership, and veteran presence have been reduced to line items in a spreadsheet that rarely add up to a positive sum. As we watch the last generation of traditional hitters fade from the game, we're witnessing more than just the end of individual careers. We're seeing the complete transformation of baseball from a sport that once celebrated the longevity of its stars to one that views aging as an inevitable liability to be managed rather than an asset to be cherished. The numbers don't lie, and in modern baseball, the numbers are all that matter. If you enjoyed watching this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.